So today, not only are we going to talk about an author who is considered by many to be the best Southern Gothic horror writer of all time, we're also going to talk about his book, which arguably some people consider the best haunted house story of all time. This was an author I was really excited to try out for the first time, a book I've been wanting to read for a very long time. So did it all live up to the hype? Be sure to stick around after the intro. What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and happy Friday. It's almost the weekend. I'm always happy when it's almost the weekend. Pretty much like always, today I'm here for a book review. If you happen to be new to the channel, I read a lot of Indian small press horror, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Check out some of the other content on the channel, and maybe you'll discover a book that you enjoy. For those returning to the channel, coming back, thanks for coming back and sticking around. I do really appreciate it. So for today's book review, it's going to be off the cuff. I usually write something down and sort of use it as a loose script. But we're going off the cuff today, and today we're talking about The Elementals by Michael McDowell. For some reason, I always want to get him confused with Malcolm McDonald. I don't know why. I guess it's because the double M name. But we're talking about Michael McDowell's The Elementals today. So this book, it was originally published back in 1981. At some point, it had gone out of print. It has since been reissued or reprinted through Valancourt Books. This edition came out in 2014 with this new cover on here. I really like the old cover better. This one's good, but I like the old one if you can find like the original paperback. Speaking of finding original paperbacks, I have never ever found or seen a Michael McDowell book out in the wild at like a used bookstore or anything. I've been wanting to read him forever. This book in particular, I've been wanting to read forever. I don't like buying books online if I can help it. So I've been wanting to find this at a used bookstore, and have never seen any of his books out in the wild before, which is a shame because this was a really good book. A really good experience, and he seems like a fantastic author. So I wish his books were more readily available. I did listen to this on audiobook. I didn't write down the narrator's name, but the narrator did a really fantastic job. I will be honest, I started this book, I don't know, it's been quite a while ago, and got like an hour or so into it, and I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't like the narrator at first. I don't really know why, but I stopped the book, put it down for a while, came back, started it over again from the beginning, and I really liked it a lot more the second time around. I don't know why I wasn't into it the first time. Just might have not been the right time for me to listen to it. I didn't like the narrator the first time. For the first hour or so I listened to it. The second time I thought the narrator did a fantastic job. So I'll just put that out there for you guys. I do have some of McDowell's other books on audiobook as well. I have Gilded Needles, I believe it's called. I have The Amulet and the Blackwater Saga. I think the only one I'm missing is Cold Moon Over Babylon. I don't know if he has any other books other than those. I'm definitely going to continue on listening to his other books. I really loved his writing style. He's considered by most people one of the best Southern Gothic horror writers ever, like I said at the beginning. And The Elementals has been touted as one of the best haunted house stories ever. So the question posed at the beginning, did it live up to the hype? It did, and it didn't at the same time, if that makes any sort of sense. It did live up to the hype that it is a good book. I don't think it was as amazing as other people have said, but it was definitely a really solid, entertaining read. But the way it didn't live up to the hype, I guess, and this isn't really the hype behind it, I don't really know, but it wasn't, I guess, what I was expecting it to be. It's definitely not your traditional haunted house story whatsoever. So I think that sort of not necessarily threw me off, but it wasn't just what I was expecting going in. We'll just leave it at that. So I think this book is set in the late 70s, early 80s. I don't remember for sure if it ever had a specific time frame, but we're following sort of this family unit, this very dysfunctional family, the Savage family and the McCrae family, who are related by marriage. And this isn't a spoiler. This is the very opening scene of the book. Marianne Savage, she has recently passed away, and the book opens at her funeral. We have Marianne Savage. She's passed away. We have her son, Dauphin Savage. We have Dauphin's sister, who is a nun. I don't remember her name. She's not in the book very much at all, but she's there. We have Dauphin's wife, Lee McCrae Savage. That's the marriage connection. We have Lee's brother, Luker McCrae. We have Luker's daughter, India. We have Luker and Lee's mother, Big Barbara, is what they call her. And then we have the family sort of maid, the family housekeeper for the Savage family. Her name is Odessa, and she's been there for as long as anyone can remember, like 30-something years. She has been working for the Savage family. And there's this bizarre incident that happens at the funeral. I don't want to give it away. I'll let you experience it for yourself. But that's sort of the way the whole book goes, sort of. It's a very, very, very slow burn of a book. Throughout, you get this sort of lingering sense of dread, this ominous, eerie feeling that sort of slowly builds and boils in the background. It's almost like a heart monitor. You'll go through and you'll get a blip of something bizarre or creepy. It'll sort of flatline, and you'll get another blip, and on and on. But it builds. You can feel sort of the tension building slowly throughout the book, and then at the end, it finally reaches its boiling point, its crescendo, and it just explodes at the very end. But it's a very slow burn of a book, and I think it was never boring for me anyway. But I think what really sets this apart, what made it stand out and not be just a slog to get through, was the character work. The characters were fantastic. They're super interesting. There's a lot of depth to them. Like I said earlier, it's a very dysfunctional and weird family. I think I like the relationship between Luker and his daughter, India, the best. It was very sort of unsettling at times, very sort of cringy, if you will. She doesn't refer to him as dad or father. She calls him Luker by his first name. He allows her to drink alcohol, and it seems like she takes pills, uppers and downers, and that's never anything that's explicitly focused on, but it is mentioned. She knows a lot about her dad's sex life, which is really weird. It's just a very bizarre relationship. They cuss at each other. It was just really weird and bizarre and a bit cringy at times, but it was a fascinating relationship to watch unfold or listen to it as it unfolded throughout the story. Those were probably my two, I guess you'd say, my favorite characters. Just the dynamic between the two was super interesting, and it was kind of different. It wasn't like an abusive relationship, really. It was odd and weird and different, and that's why I enjoyed it. But it was very, as a father, it was very, especially as a father who has a daughter, it was very cringy at times, their relationship together. There's one scene in particular where he comes out of the shower naked, and his daughter's laying out his clothes for him. He doesn't try to cover up. She doesn't care that he's naked. It's a whole really weird relationship. But the whole family as a whole, the Savage and McCrae unit as a whole, it's all dysfunctional and weird. But what happens is the story, after the funeral, Dauphin's upset. His mother's passed away. He's had to do this bizarre, we'll say, ritual at the funeral that unsettled him, that he didn't want to do. So to sort of get away from it all, clear their heads, take some time away from their day-to-day, they travel down to Beldam, which is sort of the family vacation area down in the Gulf Coast of Alabama. The whole book takes place in Alabama, but they go down to Beldam, where the majority of the book takes place, sort of this vacation area, but it's desolate. There's nothing around, no other communities or houses or whatever other than these three houses that sort of are owned by the family. They're these old Victorian, sort of Gothic-looking houses. Each one is exactly the same. They were all built at the same exact time by the same exact person. The insides and outsides are identical. The only difference is they face different directions on the beach. There's three houses. There's the Savage house, the McCrae house, and then the empty and uninhabited third house. In the third house, it's creepy and mysterious, and it seems like it's not sinking into the sand, but the sand is sort of slowly rising up. The sand dune is rising up and basically eating the house. It's sort of busted in the windows on the first floor, and sand is scattered around. But no one seems to really remember who used to live there or why it's uninhabited, or if they do remember, they don't really want to talk about it. It's sort of hush hush. We don't talk about the third house. We don't look at the third house. We sort of ignore it. So this is where the majority of our story takes place, on this beach, this sandbar. And when the tide comes in, it cuts off sort of the roadway. So you are isolated out there on that little sandbar with these three houses. Obviously there's no internet at the time anyway, but there's no TV, there's no radio. There's really nothing to do out there other than sit and I don't think there's even air conditioning. There's nothing to do other than sit and just bake in the sweltering heat of the Alabama summer. That plays a pretty big factor in sort of the atmosphere of the book. It's hot, it's sweltering, it's humid. Everyone's always just pouring sweat and dripping sweat, and it feels oppressive. And I like the weather feeling oppressive adds into sort of the supernatural oppressiveness of the book. That's a very nice way to sort of blend that together. But India, she's a teenage girl. I think she's like maybe 12, 13 or so. They live in New York City. They came down to Alabama for the funeral. She's never been here before. She's used to the hustle and bustle of a big city. Now she's on this beach with these houses with nothing to do whatsoever. Her father is a professional photographer, and she sort of dabbles in that as well. So, like any kid would do, she gets curious and goes out to investigate sort of the mysterious third house. Since no one talks about it, no one wants to go there. It's interesting because it's being covered by the sand dune. So she goes and starts to take pictures of the third house. And that's where a lot of the supernaturals and creepy elements start to come into play based off that third house. One thing I did really like about the book is it's not a traditional ghost story. It's not like a ghost or a spirit. It was unique and different what the supernatural, I'll just say, elements were in the book. The book is called The Elementals. It's not called The Ghosts or something. I really like that different twist, that different take on a supernatural haunted house story. It's not just your average ghost and spirits haunting the house. And the bits that we do get, the creep factor, were very interesting, and they were sort of unsettling. I really like that. Try not to give too much away, but whenever we do see something sort of supernatural, it'll look sort of like a person, but it'll open its mouth and like the sand pours out. It was just really vivid imagery that I liked, that was different than like I said, your average ghost stories. There's lots of sand here. The sand plays a really big and important sort of factor and role in the story. I don't want to give too much more away about the actual narrative because I want you to read it for yourself, discover the narrative for yourself. But it's full of these just small creepy moments that build and lead up to this explosive, I thought it was just explosive ending compared to the rest of the book. It's really well paced, and then you get to the end and just all hell breaks loose by the end. And I like the revelations, the sort of shocking reveals that we get at the end about what is really all going on. I really enjoyed that part of the book. And if you're comparing this book to like more modern stuff, like splatterpunk and that kind of stuff, the Elementals might seem sort of tame. It's not super violent. It's not super gory. There's not a lot of blood and guts and all that stuff. It's a very subtle, dreadful horror experience. It's not over the top. It's not super in your face. Very well done, subtle horror, I would call it. And I've mentioned this before. I was on the Coffin Couch podcast. We were talking about Bly Manor on there. And I posed the question, what would make a good season 3 of that show? We had The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor. Season 3 would be The Haunting of whatever. I think The Haunting of Beldam would make a fantastic season 3. I don't know if this book has ever been adapted for a TV or a movie. If so, I would like to watch it. Let me know down in the comments if it has been. I think this would make a perfect, 8 or 9 episode TV series. The creepiness things that they could do and the things that set it apart from other haunted house stories will be interesting to see, visualize, and play out in a TV show. I just thought I'd mention that because I really would like to see this adapted, especially if Mike Flanagan's doing it as part of the Haunting of whatever series. I think it would make an excellent season 3 or season 4 or whatever of that type of show. But other than that, that's all I really have to say about it. It's a really good haunted house story. I did enjoy it. If I were to give it a rating, I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. It was solid. It was slow, but the slowness didn't take away anything for me because the characters were so interesting. I really enjoyed the characters. Some people might think it's too slow. It's not really scary per se, but it definitely has those creepy, dreadful moments. And the ending, I love the ending. The ending was the best part for me. I don't want to give anything away about the ending, but it was sort of explosive compared to the rest of the book. And I enjoyed that the author sort of just went that direction with it. But I think that's all I have to say about the actual book. Again, I'm going to give it 4 stars, The Elementals by Michael McDowell. Also, if you haven't already, check out the Discord link down in the description. We have a lot of cool things coming up next year, starting in January. We're starting a book club called Spine Breakers, and Chris from Chris in the Basement came up with a name. I think that's awesome, so thanks, Chris, for that. We're reading 1 book a month, like a book club. We're doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for January. In January, we're also doing the month of Poe. I'm reading some Edgar Allan Poe stories, 1 per week, so 4 stories. So if any of that sounds cool to you, check it out in the description over to the Discord. Come hang out with us over there. We have a lot of fun. But that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you all for spending your time with me. Hope you'll have a good weekend. My name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.